In back segment tonight, as mentioned, Republicans in Nevada will caucus tomorrow. Donald Trump is widely expected to win that contest, according to the polls. Senators Rubio and Cruz are fighting for second. Joining us now from Nevada is Senator Rubio. So let's talk a little policy tonight. First, we've got about 12 million illegal immigrants currently living here in the USA. Mr. Trump says he would deport all of them. Would you?
Well, the ones that are dangerous criminals, the ones that are violent, the ones who pose a threat would be immediately deported. And many others will have to leave or be deported because they don't qualify. They've been here long enough. But I can just tell you that what we do with the rest of them is not even something we're going to have a debate about until we first secure our border. And only after we've secured our border, then we'll see what the American people are willing to support when it comes to someone who's been here for a long time, is not otherwise a criminal, has passed a background check, learns English, pays a fine, starts paying taxes. We'll see what the American people support.
Well, we assume that
it can't do it all at once. It's got to be secure the border first.
And we assume anyone who wins the Republican nomination will do that if they become president. But I'm interested in your vision, okay? Because your father came here from Cuba. And he came legally because Cubans had the political component going for them after Castro took over in '59. Now, your vision, not the American people's vision, your vision. You got 12 million people living here. Trump says he's going to round them up, use federal authorities and federal power to force them to go back home. Some people say that's not realistic. Some people say that won't happen because courts would block it. But your vision is to deal with illegal aliens here who have broken our laws. How? What will you try to sell the voters?
Yeah, and first, just to set the record straight, my parents came in 1956 before Castro. They came through the regular green card process. They applied, and they entered the country the normal immigration way. They didn't have any sort of special status. And then as far as the 12 million that are here, look, I don't believe the American people support some sort of militaristic roundup of individuals, and I don't think you could carry it out. The sort of tactics it would require would offend the American people. And the good news is we don't have to do it that way. If you secure our border, if you put in place mandatory E-Verify, if you put in place a mandatory entry-exit tracking system, if we prove to the American people that illegal immigration is finally under control, I think the American people will respond in a very rational, reasonable, but responsible way about what do you do with someone that fits certain criteria.
In your mind,
again, it depends on what the
all right, but let me give you an example.
It depends on what the American people are willing to.
Let me give you an example. All right, so Tommy O'Malley has overstayed his visa from County Cork in Ireland. Let's take it out of the Mexican realm, because there are a lot of non-Mexicans who are here illegally. All right, let's take that emotional component out of it. So Tommy O'Malley comes over, he overstays his visa, he's got a job out on Long Island, he's been here, he's got 2 kids. You let him stay, you give him American citizenship, what do you do with him?
Well, first of all, it depends on what the American people are willing to support, because we're not going to ram anything down their throat. But I'm going to give it to you, Bill. Okay, but hold on a second. Let me finish my statement. It does depend on what the American people will support. Here's what I've suggested in the past. If someone has been here for a defined period of time, they can pass a background check. If they've committed crimes, they can't stay. They have to pay a tax. They have to start paying taxes. They're going to have to pay a substantial fine because they violated the law. And in exchange for all of that, they can apply and receive a work permit. And that's all they're going to be allowed to have, a permit that allows them to work here and travel. And that's it. And that's all they'll be allowed to have for a very significant period of time. I think that's something the American people might be open to, but only after our borders are secure.
They might be, but it would have to be very well defined to them. Now let's go to foreign policy. As you know, last week, U.S. bombed Libya to try to defeat ISIS. Almost every military commander in the country says you can't just defeat ISIS from the air. Do you have specific ways to take these savages out, or are we going to let them just operate, you know, contain, as President Obama wants to do, contain, but not defeat? And if you do have specifics, I need to hear them.
Yeah, they need to be defeated, and it begins by eliminating from them any sort of safe haven where they can organize and operate. The reason why ISIS needed to be hit in Libya is because that is where they now bring their foreign fighters. And so the air component is significant, and actually need to do a lot more than what we're doing now. I also believe we need to conduct an increased number of special operations, targeting their leadership and their logistical areas. But I do think ultimately they will need to be confronted by a ground force, and that ground force should ideally be made up primarily of Sunni Arabs themselves. These are Sunni areas areas that need to be liberated of ISIS, and they can only be truly liberated and held by Sunnis themselves. It can't be Kurds. It can't be Shia. It has to be Sunnis.
Why not NATO?
So as president, I am going to put...
Why not
because
NATO,
again, you're asking
NATO
Western troops...
and the Sunni component joining together
right.
and attacking ISIS in the 3 countries where they've established...
Well, we would.
Well, NATO hasn't been, no
Bill,
Republican candidate has really put that forth, that NATO should be involved.
Well, here's the problem with NATO. First of all, the problem with NATO is 14 of the countries in NATO spend less on their military than New York City spends on its police department. And so NATO's been significantly eroded in terms of its capabilities to project power from abroad. In essence, Bill, we are NATO. The French and the Brits have some capability, but the United States is NATO. So they might be able to contribute some fighters here or there, but by and large, it will require an increased number of special operators from the United States working in conjunction with a ground force made up primarily of Sunni Arabs from Egyptians and Jordanians and Saudis and other Gulf kingdoms and Syrians and Iraqis, too, from the tribal areas. But it has to be Sunnis that govern these territories once they're liberated.
All right.
If you put any other group on the ground in those cities, it's going to lead to sectarian warfare because Sunnis are not going to be governed by Shia.
I agree. But in order to stem the unbelievable refugee problem, you're going to need NATO to be in there to have a centralized command. The Sunnis are not going to have a centralized command. But anyway...
no, I agree that the U.S. should lead the way in terms of leading the coalition
and if the NATO countries don't cooperate, you know what? They're out. They're out. That's it. Because
well, we are basically NATO, is what I'm saying.
I understand that, but you know, Poland and other countries, they can pony up too. All we need is 50,000 men, and I think NATO could provide that. Hey, Senator, you're welcome anytime. We appreciate a good conversation tonight.